Okay, I'm going to start with this classwork tab. This is our new assignment. This is our introduction. Okay, so remember, we're kind of killing two birds with one stone. We're on our meeting, but at the same time, I'm recording this stuff for us to use um, as a tool for this assignment. Okay, but step number one, really, that's what I was talking about earlier. We want to use this outline folder, or not outline folder, the whole research paper folder. So if, yours is probably going to look a little bit different than mine. I've got a ton of this stuff. Okay, so I do a lot of folders, but I've had Google Drive for a while. Can I do more stuff than just teach this class? So, but this is the folder that has all your stuff. This is if you've been following directions. If you haven't, then you'd have no idea what I'm talking about. Okay, but if you started with the research folder assignment and kept up with what we're doing, then this is a folder that everybody has. All right. So I'm just going to pretend that everybody's been following directions this whole time, and this is kind of nice. Like I've got all the things that I've been working on so far. Okay, in this folder, I don't have to look for them. They're all labeled source one, source two, source three, Zeus Coach Eddie, Zeus Coach Eddie outline. I know exactly what I'm opening up each time. That's really helpful. Okay, especially when this is a longer project, and now you probably understand why I had you guys do all that stuff. It's one of those things like you just gotta trust me a little bit. Okay, I promise it's for a reason. So all that stuff's gonna kind of culminate into, hey, that's why you had this do that, right? That's going to be a little bit of an aha or an oh crap, I didn't do that moment today. Like that's why he wasn't just being like a pain in the rear. Okay, this I probably was being, but there's a reason for that. Okay, but we have all this stuff opened up, and I can look back and forth. I moved that tab over, excuse me, to be right next to it. Okay, while I'm working. All right, so take your outline, okay, and paste it on the MLA template you created for your paper. Okay, so I'm going to do that for us. Okay, so I'm going to open up that paper, and I said if you haven't done it, then create it. Okay, go ahead and create it. Now we haven't touched this thing yet. Okay, so this still has all this crap on here. All right, so you can delete all this junk. Okay, that's just written in a different language. You don't need it. Okay, that's just filler there when you create the document. It kind of fills that in. I'm going to leave the works cited stuff, and this is later on in the directions, but I'm going to leave that, excuse me, for right now. Okay, but I've got that open, and now I'm going to open up my outline. Okay, and I'm going to copy and paste just the meat of it, right? Okay, so I'm looking at all this stuff, okay, from the thesis down. Okay, that's what I'm going to copy and paste. Okay, so control C. Okay, come back to my paper. I click on it somewhere, okay, and then paste that thing, okay. And we're doing this as a tool, okay. It's a tool for us to use as we write, okay. Next thing, and if I haven't done this, you create that document and save it as your person's name. And I can show you how to do that real quick. It doesn't take long at all. Okay, so if you haven't created one of those MLA templates yet, you click New. I'm in this folder, okay, but I click New, and then I click from a template, okay, and then I click this little thing where it says MLA report. Okay, so you click that, and then it creates that for you. I don't want to make another one because it'd be kind of confusing. Okay, but when you get that, you just name it um, Zeus Coach Eddie, or for you it'd be like Zeus your name, or Hades your name, whatever it is. Okay, and that would be your MLA document. So it'll create exactly what you saw. Okay, me open up beforehand. But if you follow the directions, it's the document you haven't really messed with yet that we made with that first assignment. Okay. All right. So the next thing it calls for is copying and pasting my bib entries from the top of my source documents, okay, to the works cited part of the paper. Okay, this is the last page of the MLA document. So it's the stuff that I left so that we would have kind of a view of what that's supposed to look like. All right. So I take my source document. So that's why it's kind of important for us to have this all in a folder, right? So I'm going to open up my source one, and I'm going to take this thing. This is what I'm talking about. Okay, so this is what I plugged in when I plugged in this to that bib generator. Okay, for that source assignment, I created this thing. Okay, that's up here. Okay, I pointed with my finger like you can see that. Okay, but I created this thing up here that tells me where I got my stuff, and then I use this first part in my parentheses for my outline. But for now I get to put this in my works cited. So I copied that. Okay, I'm going back to my paper, and I left this works cited stuff here so I could kind of have a reference. I'm going to replace this first one here, so I'm going to select it and paste it. Boom. So that's what my works cited is going to be. For each of my sources, that's the map. If anybody else wants to see the source that you used to write this paper, hey, I mean, I want to learn a little bit more about Greek mythology and Zeus. I'm going to go to this place. Okay, so it shows them where to get that stuff. So it doesn't matter if it's a book, an encyclopedia, any kind of electronic source like this is. Okay, this is a .com, so they could just go to this URL here that's provided in this bib entry, and then go there and read some more about Zeus if they want to. Okay, but that's what that's there for, in addition to saying, hey, I got this information from here. I'm giving this person or this entity, in this case, this company, credit for what I'm using from their place. Okay, so it's like somebody smarter than me said this. I didn't come up with this by myself. Somebody with a PhD or whatever come up with this. Okay, so that's what we put this there for. But I'm going to repeat that step. Remember, I only did that one time on that first source for you guys as an example. But you would do this for both of your sources. Okay, so you're supposed to do that with each of these sources. So what I didn't do, okay, you needed to do, okay, for source two. Okay, so see, I just put this on there. Okay, but for you, you should have the same thing that you have for source one. Okay, on source two. All right, I was just showing you how to do it, so I just did it for that source one to show you how to do that. Okay, so that's another reason why I'm just leaving this stuff to show you kind of what a works cited looks like and what we need to do. Okay, now this isn't in the directions, and we'll worry about this kind of cleanup stuff later. Okay, but you need to alphabetize your works cited, and what you do is you use the first letter, okay, that sticks out. So for us, okay, yeah, this doesn't work. So Zeus would actually be the last thing here. Okay, so I'm just using this as an example. Now this is really cool. Okay, so this is a new thing. Control X, cut stuff. Okay, and then you still use the Control V thing right there, and then I can clean that up with a delete. Okay, and then I move those things where they need to be. So Z comes after D. Okay, and so on and so forth, right? But DOL, DOE, oops, I need to put this one up top because E comes before L. And like I said, if you don't get to this right away, it's not a big deal. It's technically not part of the assignment, but I like to work when I'm thinking about it, so that's what I'm doing here. So remember, these are just make believe. Okay, this is my real one. Okay, so that's what I have there. So that's that step. All right. So once I've done all those, you should have two. Okay. Use the provided sample documents and video while we're watching the video or getting this as a lesson right now. Okay. And then write my introduction paragraph using the thesis statement as the last sentence of your paragraph. So what I've given you guys, okay, is three different documents to kind of help you out. Okay. So along with me using these, I've given you the examples, okay, in your assignment so you can reference those as you go. Okay, so this is what we're on. Okay, my report example. Okay, this is what I wrote and gave you some comments on what it should look like. Okay, so this is what we're working to. This is what we're going to end up with. Okay, so, but that's hopefully going to be helpful, but not something that you need to just copy. Okay, so if you have Zeus, there is a lucky person that has Zeus. Um, yeah, that's just the luck of the draw with that. Okay, you can use some of this stuff, but just don't just copy and paste this. Okay, as your own with this, but you can use this as a map to what we're doing here. Okay, if you guys want to use this first sentence here, that's fine. Okay, but that is a general introduction, what we kind of call an icebreaker. We're starting broad. Remember, we talked about that umbrella thing, and we're working into the thesis. Okay, so that's what I'm doing here. Okay, when I'm starting to write this paper. Okay, I've got my thesis statement. I'm going to start typing here. So I'm just going to delete this part right here. Okay, and I'm going to delete that this is an example. Okay, so this is something that you need to clean up. Okay, because this is actually going to be in your paper. So I'm starting to write here. Okay, so this is where I start doing this 3,000 years ago. Now I've already got this written up. Okay, so I'm going to kind of help myself out a little bit. Okay, and Windows machines can do something similar with this. So you can do the snapping tool. One thing goes to the right, some one thing goes to the left. But for me, this would be something that you could do looking at the example and then typing your own. Okay, so that's the next step. That's what I'm doing here. Okay, so what I do generally in the beginning of this is I'm starting really, really broad. Okay, so what's broader than Zeus? Well, Greek mythology. That's why I've got it included here. Okay, but what is Greek mythology? If I didn't know anything about any of this stuff, where would I start? Okay, so I'd have to start like, okay, Greek. What's Greece? Okay, it's a um, a culture that is still here today, but they are really important for us because they were one of the oldest cultures that we have written stuff from. Okay, so that's what I've got here. Okay, that I started with in this. So I'm just kind of mimicking that I'm typing this stuff. Okay, so a long time ago in ancient Greece. Okay, like what modern day man considers myth was one of the most popular religious stories that is still being told today. Oh, and then modern day authors and movie makers. What I'm doing here, okay, is kind of relating to the reader why we're reading this. Why is this relevant? Why is this something that we're still talking about? Okay, so at this point, kind of gluing in and working down, okay, to be as specific as I need to be, okay, working my way down to my singular person. Okay, so I'm starting out the whole Greek mythology. Okay, now I'm going to talk about my person, but I need to narrow that focus down as I go. Okay, starting as broad as I can. Okay, with Greek mythology. Okay, and then work my way down into that singular character in Greek mythology. Okay, so for this, I'm just going to go ahead and take this and then copy and paste it because for time, you guys don't need to be just sitting there watching me type. Okay, but there we go. All right, so that worked into modern day authors and movie makers have depicted their favorite stories from this era as long as writing and film have existed. You can use this. That's okay for me. This is our first research paper. I'm okay. I've already filled in some of this stuff for your thesis statement anyway. So this would work for everybody's paper. Okay, Greek mythology is romanticized among many different cultures and beliefs and revered among the artistic community. Then I work into this is where my thesis statement is. Okay, a true representative of Greek mythology, Zeus, played his part in Greek culture by doing this, doing this, doing this. this is the stuff that you filled in, okay? And it will work for any of your, okay, any of your people. All right, so you can use that. You can use the long time ago. You can use the 3,000 years ago. The introduction is pretty much written for you. Okay, you can change it up a little bit. Okay, but that's why I provided it for you so you can use it. Okay, now the rest of this stuff, the body paragraph stuff, you're not going to be able to use unless you have Zeus. Okay, and still you need to do your own material. Some of this stuff I actually just made up. Okay, so you'll see that in my outline. I've got one of my sources is the Book of Eddie. That's not a real book. Okay, so I made some of that stuff up, so you can't use that if you're doing so. Okay, so I wrote my introduction. Okay, and really what you're doing is just kind of right. I'm doing most of this stuff kind of for you. Okay, but you can take some liberty in changing some of that stuff up a little bit. But I'm trying to help you through the process and understanding what you're doing at the same time. So doing a little bit of that for you, and it's kind of plug and play. Okay, so this works for everybody. Okay, in their introduction. Okay, so I'm almost doing some of this stuff for you a little bit. All right, but I want you to know how to do this, and why we're doing it, and what's happening while we're going here. So that's what this stuff is on our commented thing. Okay, so that's that part of the assignment. I'll go back and follow my directions. Okay, I'm going to leave the rest, okay, of the outline in place. It will serve as my map for the paper, and we'll delete it as we go. Okay, so I left the thesis statement. I just deleted like thesis colon, excuse me, from my outline. And I want to do the same thing, okay, as I go for my body paragraph. So we're really about to start getting after it, writing this stuff. Okay, using this outline as we go is kind of our map. Okay, so in all, this is kind of a help. This document, what this is showing you like kind of the way to write a paper. Okay, so I don't I don't want you to go any further than this, but we'll have this document to look at. Okay, for each and every paragraph as kind of a map. Okay, so for our introduction, okay, we write this first paragraph as the introduction. The first sentence needs to generally introduce. Okay, for a singular subject, start with a broad introduction, work your way down into more specific. The last sentence of your introduction is your thesis from your outline. We're following this map, okay, of what these paragraphs are all the way down, okay, to the bottom here. Okay, and I'm going to delete this right here because this is from a different assignment, so you won't see that, okay, after watching this. Okay, so that's what all this stuff is here for, okay, so that you can see what all those things look like. All right, but what you should end up with is this. Okay, so I've got my introduction done. Now I can start cleaning some of this stuff up. So right here, this is underlined. I don't want it to be. Okay, yours shouldn't be underlined. Okay, mine is because I remember I used Zeus as the example. Okay, so to fix all that, this underlining stuff, I'm just taking this underlining out. Okay, and then the rest of it, I'm just filling in my appropriate stuff here. So my name, professor name, I'm going to go Professor X. Okay, my subject name, English 1. And then the date, this is actually the 3rd. Okay, and remember I'm doing this selection thing because I can type over it, December. And this is still 2020 all day long. Okay, now, oh, I got the X in there still. Get rid of that. Okay, so I did a little bit of cleanup. Up here at the very top, you might have to double click here, but you just write your last name. There, nobody else's last name is Eddie, but you'll write your last name up the top. Okay, that's your header. So every page you'll see Eddie, or actually you'll see your last name and then the page number up there at the top. Okay, so that's just some cleanup stuff. Okay, and then the title of my report is, okay, and then we're ready to turn that thing in, man. Okay, so turn it in. Okay, and we'll be using the same document. So here's another problem. Okay, if you don't do this on time, okay, or if you don't do this as each assignment is given to you, it's going to be kind of confusing for you. So if you're behind and you turn in your introduction late and you want to go ahead and start working on your first body paragraph, we're using the same document. So you can't work on it until I send it back to you. So this is kind of on me and you at the same time. But once you send this in, I grade it, I send it back to you, then you can work on the next step because we're working on the same document, okay, for the rest of the paper. This is your paper, okay? It'll just be cleaned up and added to until we're finished, okay? So that's what we're doing, okay, for this introduction paragraph, and this sets us up really well, okay, for the rest of writing our paper, okay? So we'll add all that stuff to it as we go. After we write this body paragraph, we're using this as our map to this body paragraph, right? Okay, so that's what we're doing. That's what we've been kind of building all this stuff for. So now you know, hey, this is why we created that folder. This is why we labeled all those things source 1, source 2, source 3. That's why we put outline in the title of this document. That's why we left this one. Yeah, that's why we created this with an MLA template. It should all kind of be kind of coming together like all these directions. Oh, that's why we did all that. So if you didn't do some of those things, and I'm reminding you, hey, you were supposed to put your bib entry at the top of your source document. Do that because you're going to need it. It's one of the most important parts of the whole paper, or I wouldn't have had you do it. Okay, so it's not just kind of a half butt, like, oh, I wrote some stuff, it's good enough. Okay, this step by step stuff, I'm helping you out a lot with the writing part, but the little hoops that I'm having you jump through are really important for us to understand. We're going to use that stuff later. Okay, so it's really, really important that we keep with that and do that.